I'm going to introduce myself a little bit at a time. I'll let you know that I'm a transformational coach, but I'm not going to be coaching today. We'll do a little bit of, introduction to coach work, but I'm not going to actually coach you all. We're not going to do a coaching group. I'm also a counselor, but I'm not going to be counseling you. And I'm also a healer, but I'm not going to be doing any healing work today. But what I am going to be doing is I'm going to be your teacher. My hope is that today you're going to learn material to help you feel more self-accepting and confident and spacious. So I believe that you're here to learn material that you either don't have yet or material that you know that you want to deepen your practice of this material. So this is a self-love and confidence masterclass, and I'll introduce you to the pillars of radical self-acceptance and unconditional self-love, from which you can build the confidence you'll need to succeed professionally and personally, even though you may be struggling with self-doubt, insecurity, shame, or anxiety. And I'll also hand you the essential key that you'll need to unlock the door to get this process started. So this is a master level class, but I want you to know that there's nothing to get wrong, so you don't need to worry. When the material is new, just let it wash over you and sink in however it will. And when it's review material, I invite you to think of this as an opportunity to broaden what you already know and let the material you know sink in more deeply. And as thoughts, feelings, and sensations come up, I suggest that you jot down just enough information to spark journaling later. So in order to know if today was helpful, we're going to use a Likert measurement scale to gauge any differences from how you feel now to the end of class. So you will need a blank sheet of paper and something to write with. So write the numbers 1 to 14 vertically down the left side of your blank sheet of paper, one number on each line. Next to each number, you'll be writing a number from 1 to 5 that best describes how you've been feeling about these statements that you see here. So you're going to set this sheet aside and we'll refer back to it later. And for now, I'm going to properly introduce myself in the context of this webinar or class. So my name is Ami Ji. I'm a self-love and confidence coach. I help people transform self-doubt to self-love so they can confidently step into a more whole expression of themselves. And I help people expand their views and better connect with others, nature, and what I'll refer to today as the energetic field and source. I want you to trust that what I'll share is based on many years of education and experience. So I'll talk a minute about my training and experience. I've completed psychosynthesis coach training and advanced psychosynthesis practitioner training. I have a master's degree in mental health counseling, and I've trained and given trainings and worked in the healing arts for over 40 years. I've been working as a psychosynthesis life coach since January 2017. However, I've been practicing transformational life, wellness, relationship, grief, and spiritual work for over 40 years. I began learning and practicing metaphysical energy healing in 1977. In the 80s, I began a lifelong study of natural foods, nutrition, and exercise for wellness. I was a mental health residential counselor and case manager from 84 to 95, during which time I also became a hospice volunteer and a death doula. I studied addiction prevention and recovery and MRI brain studies during the decade between 2005 and 2010, and have been personally and professionally involved with grief and bereavement support since 2005. I've worked with the elderly and with children and physically challenged, and have been a nursing assistant, an occupational therapist, a Montessori school teacher, an art teacher, aerobics and dance teacher. I've helped people die and heal and live and talk between the living and the dead and connect with self and others and nature and the energetic field and source. I've been using provocative questions to help people discover their aspirations and blocks for as long as I can remember. And I tell all of this to you because I want you to know that I enjoy learning and working with people in a variety of ways, and I believe I have a lot to offer. This class is designed for people who feel that self-doubt, insecurity, or anxiety are getting in their way. And if you don't mind unmuting yourself to say, that's me, if this could be you, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, currently that's me.
Yes, that's me.
That's me.
Yep, I relate to that.
Me too.
Well, that's good, because we're all in the right place then. So I imagine that you've told yourself to ignore self-doubt and push fear aside and get on with life. And I tried that too. And you're probably realizing, as I have, that these strategies have not been as effective as you may have hoped they would be. What you may not realize is that the anxiety caused by insecurity has detrimental effects to both mental and physical health. And I will, in a little while, I will attest to that for myself. Over the course of this class, I'll share how you can transform self-doubt step by step into self-acceptance. You'll begin to grasp the concept that self-acceptance is what is needed to solidify a confident foundation upon which any success will be built. Self-acceptance and feeling confident will free you up to make conscious, intentional choices toward building your realistic, ideal life. Imagine that you're standing before a locked door that's blocking you from the life that you'd like to live. And I come along and I say, hey, I found the key to unlock that door. And I'm here to tell you that I'm here right now, and I'm going to hand you that key. So I want you to feel excited, because I feel really excited for you right now. If you choose to unlock the door, I'll walk through the door with you and show you the 3 pillars for transforming self-doubt into self-acceptance and self-love. So just take a moment right now to imagine building the life you most desire. Imagine your new life. You no longer feel uncertain about your ability to be in a great relationship, have an amazing family life, thrive doing the job you love, be a mover and a shaker and a world change maker. I invite you right now to make the proclamation that you are ready for this new life. So say it out loud. I'm ready for my new life to begin right now. In fact, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself right now, and we'll all say it out loud for everyone to hear. Here we go. Ready? I'm ready for my new life to begin right now.
Right now.
Woohoo!
Right now.
Yes, and we're going to say it again, even louder and firmer and with conviction. Here we go. I'm ready
for my new life
Right now.
to begin right now.
That's great. All right, so I'm going to ask you to mute your mic again. And if you'd like to adopt this mantra, you might want to write it down and just say it to yourself as many times as you want to. So by affirming that you're ready, you've actually started the process of creating the change that you need to make in order to get to your goals. This class is for you if you're ashamed to toot your own horn because you don't want to seem like a show-off, or you're naturally compassionate and a caretaker and don't feel right about charging money for helping others. Maybe you thrive from positive feedback but have a negative self-critic living inside, dismissing all the good things people say about you. You may have fear of the unknown, keeping you from exploring your dreams, and feel stuck in the status quo. Or maybe you tend to give up when things go wrong and don't want to try again ever because you don't want to fail. You may feel like you're hiding something or pretending like you're a fraud. You may harbor an underlying belief that no matter what you do, you'll never be enough. You may feel like there's a block inside your mind or heart holding you back from being who you're meant to be. And what you really want is for your thoughts, feelings, and actions to be congruent, to feel like I am enough just as I am, to loosen what's blocking you and feel free to be your dynamic powerhouse self, to explore your dreams without doubt and fear getting in the way, to view obstacles as fun, exciting, inspirational opportunities rather than failures, to feel confident that you have a lot to offer, and know that you deserve a pay scale that sustains you or a business that's financially successful. And you may want to develop a strong, self-affirming inner voice and maybe even be part of a supportive group who build each other up with respectful, authentic camaraderie. That's us right there. All right. You don't need this class if you feel 100% secure or you've already figured out how to effectively heal your insecurity. Whoops. I'm gonna backtrack for a minute because I missed saying something about this slide. So, if internal doubt and indecision have been holding you back, the real problem may be that you've not unlocked the door and learned the pillars I'm about to teach you today. Once you implement what you learned today, you'll be on your way to move from self-doubt to self-acceptance because you'll have a new perspective and tools and the support to help you say, I am enough just as I am. And this is an introduction, but I'm still hoping that you're going to come out feeling a lot different. So you don't need this class if you feel 100% secure or you've already figured out how to effectively heal your insecurity. I am positive that you'll be disappointed if you think you'll walk away done, because what we'll be doing is enlightening, and enlightenment is a continuous practice. This isn't for you if you think you don't have control of your thoughts, or if you don't believe you can change your future by changing your present thinking. If this material seems not to apply to you at this point, I thank you for checking out this webinar, and I sincerely understand if anyone wants to bow out. And if you're still here, then I'm glad that you found me, and we'll continue. So during this class, I'm just going to tell you, your inner voice of self-doubt may try to tell you, I can change myself, I don't need a guide. I've tried so many things, nothing worked. This will just be one more failure. I've already worked on my issues and there's no more work to be done here. I've been living this way, I can continue as is. It may not be great now, but if I change, I won't know what I'm getting into. It sounds like a bunch of woo-woo to me. I'm anxious about spending money, time, effort, anything on myself, or whatever else doubt says to you to try and talk you out of feeling better, moving forward, making transitional change. Self-doubt will try to make you believe you don't deserve your most precious dreams and goals, or to feel joy, love, and peace. Self-doubt may say you don't deserve support and guidance because you're supposed to figure everything out on your own, or that you don't deserve to invest in yourself because doing so is selfish. Self-doubt may think that you don't deserve peace and balance, or to hope that change can and will happen, or to succeed, or to forgive yourself and others, to feel gratitude and joy, to have the courage necessary to explore new territory. Self-doubt may be holding you back from experiencing love. So as you move closer to being conscious and enlightened, you're illuminating the dark places and parts that are hidden in the psyche. Those parts may try to talk you out of reaching for your aspirations. We can address those parts, and to start with, when your anxious voices of self-doubt kick in, invite them to be curious about new material, to sit back and relax, and to enjoy this intriguing and beautiful ride that we call life. Remind these voices that the time has come to accept and heal them, the hidden and wounded parts, so that we each can feel whole, so that we can feel fulfilled, and we can fulfill our unique purpose. And we need each other to do this. The whole world needs all of us to work on this right now. So while I'm confident this material I'll share can cause lives to change, I want to be transparent about what you may or may not get from this class. In order for change to happen, something different must occur. Most people choose to remain with the status quo. If you want to arrive somewhere new, though, you have to be willing to turn the key and step through a previously locked door. When you do, outcomes are highly personalized. So, although it is my deepest desire that what I share today will profoundly help you, individual results may vary. Also, your outcomes will be different than mine, and I do have a distinct advantage because I've been working for decades, practicing, training, experiencing, refining methods, tools, and techniques on this subject. So I will talk about me for a moment because I think it'll be helpful for you, and you may also tap into how this relates to you. I've been a seeker, diving deep into my own psyche, working with clients and studying and experiencing shame and healing and transformation, like I said, for over 40 years. I was a highly sensitive child, acutely aware of whenever my thoughts, feelings, or actions were shamed. I often felt confused and guilty for everything, even breathing. And you may be able to relate to this part of my story. So if you do, you could unmute yourself and just say me too if you relate to any of this.
Definitely me too.
Yes.
Me too.
Yes, I relate to that very much.
So my story has a little bit of veering off, and we each have a unique story. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my unique story, but I'm also going to suggest that as I'm talking, that you jot down words or phrases that you can come back to later just to remind you of parts of your own shame story that you're going to relate to. Maybe what I'm going to say is going to trip off something for you. And just jot down your, things that remind you to go into your own shame story. So for me, at the age of 17, I had an out-of-body experience, and it left me knowing that I am more than my body. At age 21, 22, during my first pregnancy, I experienced a handful of extraordinary moments of undeniable magic. And even so, these spiritual experiences did not touch the inner shame embedded in my psyche that I didn't even know was there. I didn't know it was okay to make mistakes and to be on a learning curve and to be imperfect. By the time I was raising children, I constantly questioned my thoughts, feelings, and actions. I looked secure, but I harbored a secret identity as deeply flawed. I went to a therapist who, after seeing her for 3 years, she told me that when she'd first asked how I was feeling, I'd blank out. Those 3 years of intensive counseling helped me acknowledge and accept my messy feelings, but we didn't delve into my deep-seated insecurity. In the 1980s, I was fascinated with John Bradshaw's work on shame and created and facilitated self-help support groups. And even so, the work I did for others didn't illuminate or dislodge my own shame. I was married, I had children, I worked. On the outside, my life looked complete. On the inside, though, I felt anxious, and my relationships, work, health, everything was being affected. There are many ways that insecurity, self-doubt, and shame and anxiety adversely affect us. And as you listen to my shame story and memories and thoughts come up for you, again, you may want to jot down how shame has affected you. I'm going to share 3 specific ways that insecurity and self-doubt and shame and anxiety have affected me. Insecurity affected my first marriage and subsequent relationships. I doubted my own thoughts, feelings, and actions. and could not clearly state what I did and didn't want in the relationship. I didn't know I had a lot to offer, and so I felt unworthy of my partner. If I had felt confident, I'm sure my first marriage would have been different, or maybe non-existent, because he really wasn't a good partner for me. And step family dynamics can be crazy difficult. There was my daughter, his daughter, and years later, our son. We were together for almost 15 years. Though I had felt mostly unsatisfied during that time, I felt excruciating emotional pain when it ended. The divorce brought up more feelings of being incompetent and unworthy of love. And for years to follow, I thought I was no good at relationships, and therefore I shouldn't be in one. Me being bad at relationships is actually not true. What is true is that I need to like myself as much as I like my partner. In 2005, I experienced a much deeper and significantly more powerful loss when my firstborn, Michelle, died at the age of 23 from a heroin overdose. I do not have adequate words to explain how powerful a force grief is, nor to express enough gratitude for grief as wise teacher and guide. Shame, however, is an unnecessary and torturous bully, and caused an unhealthy twist in an otherwise emotionally painful but healthy grieving process. I deeply miss Michelle's company and our unique relationship. That's healthy. What is twisted is when shame has me believe that I was an incompetent mom, that I was the reason Michelle used heroin, and that I was the reason for her demise. Grief renders us vulnerable. Shame beats on the vulnerable. Guilt is different than shame. Guilt can be a helpful tool for growth. Guilt nudges me to look at the parts of my parenting I didn't like. It pushes me toward a new perspective and reminds me to use this new method. But you know shame the bully has overruled guilt the helper when you feel less, not more, competent. 1 year after Michelle's death, I found a lump 2 inches in diameter under the skin of my right breast. I was diagnosed with the kind of breast cancer that had been slowly growing undetected for probably 10 years. Grief was a kind of purifier, and I was easily able to connect with my higher wisdom about why cancer was growing inside my physical body. In meditation, I remembered that my 12-year-old self had wished a higher power to give her a terminal illness so that my family could feel and show a caring kind of love for each other that they hadn't been able to. When my 12-year-old self had made that wish, she had been carrying a double-edged sword of anxiety, that she wasn't enough and that she was too much, making her feel unacceptable, unlovable, and isolated. She hid that sword of anxiety deep in her psyche and carried it into adulthood. In 2006, when I did my personal inventory to discover why I got a cancer diagnosis, the deeply embedded sword that was slowly killing my body was revealed. I had lived with an underlying constant anxiety from deeply set core shame, incessant self-doubt, and a solid sense of insecurity. Scientific studies have shown that a consistent level of anxiety releases an excess of cortisol, creating an acidic condition in the body where cancer thrives. My first husband used to say that I sweat acid because I wore through the soles of my Birkenstocks from the inside out. And he was actually correct. I knew lots about diet, exercise, energy healing, and reaching out for help. So I was able to get the cancer out of my body and thus far, keep it that way. What I didn't know was how to look honestly at and adequately address the underlying problems of anxiety due to shame, self-doubt, and insecurity. A decade after the cancer diagnosis, I finally found the key. The tipping point came when I began to train in psychosynthesis. So please unmute yourself and let me know if this is your first time hearing the word psychosynthesis.
Yes, it's my first time.
Mine too.
Okay.
I've heard you refer to it before.
All right. And I know that Sonia and I trained together. So Sonia knows psychosynthesis, but for those who don't know what psychosynthesis is, I'll take a moment. I'll take like one slide and tell you a little bit about psychosynthesis. And Sonia, for you especially, this will be just a little overview. Psychosynthesis is a framework with concepts that help us understand people's inner psychological workings. It's a methodology used by some counselors and coaches like me. And one of my favorite ways to introduce psychosynthesis is with the map that you see here, affectionately called the egg diagram, because it looks like an egg. The oval, or the egg, represents a person's psyche. Let's say the egg represents you. The egg, or you, is split into 3 areas of focus. The lower unconscious is the parts of ourselves that we're not paying attention to, and they may be things from childhood or from trauma that are affecting us, but we don't realize that. Like I have a reaction to something and I don't really know why I'm reacting that way. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I don't really delve into why I'm reacting that way. It's something that's in the lower unconscious of my psyche. The higher unconscious is the part that is like my aspirations, your aspirations and your goals and dreams and the things that when you think about them or talk about them, they light you up. But they're not things that we necessarily are aware of and talk about. And again, they're things that may have been stuffed aside. Like maybe you're a really naturally bubbly, joyful person. And you tend to want to squash that because people have told you you're too bubbly and you know, effacious or whatever the word is. So that kind of goes into the higher unconscious.
Amen.
Amen. I was thinking about you when I said that, especially.
Thank you very much.
The middle unconscious is the part that we're not paying attention to in our everyday life, in my everyday world. Like I'm looking out the window right now and I'm noticing the sky is blue and there's clouds and they have that kind of beautiful purple gray, but I wasn't noticing that before. Those are things that, you know, there are things, even sitting on this chair, I'm not really noticing what it feels like to sit on the chair. I'm too much interested in that I'm talking to you and I'm reading my notes and I'm wanting to, you know, give this information to you. So there's a lot of things in my world right now, my everyday right now, that I'm not paying attention to, and they're unconscious. So this middle part, this dashed circle, is really the interesting part to me. This is the part that this represents the things that we're aware of at any given moment. So I am aware of them talking with you. I am aware that there's a part of me that's like a teacher that's coming out that is very happy right now. I'm aware that there's also an insecure part that's wondering if I'm doing it correctly, or there's people that didn't get online and I feel so bad about that. You know, there's different parts of me that I'm fairly conscious of right now. And that middle dot is the part that's aware of all the parts. So it's the kind of part that holds it all together. I'm aware that I'm aware of things, and I'm aware that I'm not aware of things. And also that dashed circle, which is the circle of awareness, can move anywhere around on the egg. So I may be aware of, you know, those parts of myself that are insecure. That's more lower unconscious stuff. I may be aware of the parts that are more in the higher unconscious, like that teacher that, you know, just really is loving giving this information. And so that circle of awareness can move around. The goal of psychosynthesis is to expand our circle of awareness so that we're feeling more and more and more whole and complete. This egg, the full egg, each of us is this full egg. We're not aware of a lot of it. The more we become aware of, the more we become whole. So this map also shows places where we connect with what's larger than our personal self, like when we connect with others and with nature, with the energetic field, with source. So we can feel connected to that which is larger than ourselves through seemingly opposite means, such as when we experience great joy and when we experience deep loss. And this portal is known as the dark night of the soul. Both portals offer a wider perspective and connect us to a grander scheme of things. So I've been expanding my circle of awareness and have been strengthening my connection to the larger scheme of things. And specifically, I've been trying to transform my self-doubt into self-love for many years. So I have a tool belt full of transformational material and a full heart. So now I invite you to reach out through the magic of cyberspace and accept my figurative outstretched hand as I guide and support you, as you turn the key to places inside that hold you back, and learn the foundational pillars that you'll need to build a more whole, authentic, confident, and peaceful life. So I think it might be a good time to have a 5-minute break. You may want to stand up, stretch, have a few sips of clean, fresh water. And when we come back, we'll get right into the bulk of the material that you're here to learn. Okay, so we're going to get right into our material now. So let's break it down. First, there's the locked door. The locked door is the thing that's blocking you from succeeding at anything, from losing weight to finding balance, to creating an amazing long-term relationship, to being a conscious parent, to making great money at a job you love, to being an effective world change agent, to just being happy and at peace. Jot down keywords to describe what you've been most wanting, yet unable to achieve. You can spend more time later journaling more about these goals, but for now, just a word or a phrase. It may well be that the locked door blocking you from your goals is a voice of self-doubt that's chanting, "You're not capable enough. You'll never be capable enough." You can't grow when deep inside there's a belief that you're unable to change and grow. On this side of the door are your desires. On the other side of the door, the freedom to reach unmet goals. The problem is the door, self-doubt, is strong because at the core, the fibrous material holding the door together is shame. And that's the tricky part, because in its very definition, shame is something that wants to remain in hiding. And we can't change things that we won't look at. So now, as promised, I'm going to hand you the key. In order to open the door and walk into another way of thinking, feeling, and being, we have to face shame. We have to admit that we have shame, and in order to transform it, we have to be willing and to choose to work with shame. When you choose to open the door of shame, you start the process of transforming self-doubt to self-acceptance, self-love, joy, and ultimately an open-hearted sense of inner peace. When you choose to ignore shame and stay the course you're on, you will never know what's on the other side. You'll never know what life without doubt and fear is like. And unwittingly, you too may be causing yourself unnecessary emotional and physical harm. I'd like to share a story about one of my clients. It took a while for Jan to commit to this work. Once she did, well, I'm just going to say that her transformation has been truly an honor to witness. Jan told me these sessions have turned out to be literally life-changing. She's been able to reframe her thinking in ways that she'd never imagined were possible. Jan went through a lot this past fall. She was grieving through the anniversaries of the relatively recent deaths of both of her parents and her husband, and undergoing treatment for a second bout with breast cancer. And through all of this, what Jan described feeling was a new sense of peace, which I find stunning. I'm well aware from witnessing the results time and time again that it's learning and practicing the pillars I'm going to tell you about now that effectively help my clients. After decades of professional work with clients and personal research and experience in the field of personal growth and development, I've organized what I've found to be the most effective tools for this extraordinary healing and transformational process into 3 pillars that are based on psychosynthesis concepts. The first pillar is to strengthen what in psychosynthesis is known as the uppercase S self, or transpersonal self. We also have a lowercase s self, or personal self. The personal self is the part of ourselves that we understand through roles like daughter, mother, wife, friend, professional, and through stories. And then there's the transpersonal self, the part of yourself that extends beyond the role and the story and is able to transcend the personal self. The transpersonal self connects us to that which is larger than ourselves. There are lots of ways that we tap into the transpersonal self. You could probably list a number of things you do that take you out of the mundane and the ordinary, and that make you feel fresh and alive and whole and healthy and connected to others, nature, the energetic field, and source. And as I continue, I invite you to create your list. So use a word or a short phrase for now and elaborate and add to your list later. Then use your list as a reminder of the tools you already have. Tools that help you strengthen the transpersonal self. So at this point, if you'd like to unmute yourself and share what you're putting on your list, a few things that you're jotting down, that would be great.
For me, connecting with nature helps me in that area. I can feel something larger than myself when I'm out there with trees.
For me, it's kind of like singing and dancing and just having a connection to the earth and with nature too.
Meditation? Not sure.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, some of those things are on my list too. So my list includes dancing, which Patty had said, dancing and singing, and writing for me, and listening, and doing mindfulness practices, which is what Jenny had said, and definitely being in nature. I didn't write that on my list, but definitely, as Fran said. So I wanted to talk a little bit about mindfulness. One can practice mindfulness doing any activity while doing dishes or driving or walking or working or conversation, anything. Mindfulness is focusing and refocusing your attention on this present moment, this brand new breath, while acknowledging and accepting any feelings, thoughts, and body sensations that arise. So twice a week, I practice mindfulness with other people, and some of them are here. I facilitate a free online meditation group, and it's easier for me to remember to practice mindfulness when there's a regularly scheduled event like our online group. And as I said, it's free, and you're invited. So for those who are in the group, do you want to unmute yourself and say a few words about our group?
I know that it has really helped me grow a lot, and um, I'm getting more confident and say more things than I normally wouldn't. I don't say anything, things that I share and there I've never been able to say much outside it, and I just feel safe and secure, and it's just a very connected feeling, and I'm very grateful. Thank you, Ami.
Thank you for sharing that.
I would say also a lot of a change of love, energy, compassion. And for me, it has been great learning from everyone that come to the group.
Thank you for sharing that, Jenny. Yeah, so if those who aren't in the group are interested, you can ask me later more about the group. For now, I'm going to guide you in a transpersonal exercise using a tool called tuning in. We're going to take a moment to just feel the chair or the couch or the seat that you're sitting upon. Feel your connection with it. Feel it open to you so that you can sink down into it. If your back is against something, feel that connection. If your feet are touching the floor, feel that connection. Feel the clothes on your skin and the air on your skin. And notice your breath, breathing in the air around your body, the outside of your body, breathing it inside. And maybe even notice when it first enters the body, where it enters. You might notice a tickle in the end of the nostril. You may notice the temperature of the air coming in. You may notice the connection between your nose and your mouth, the sinus cavity, with the air inside of it. Notice the space between the top of your tongue and the roof of your mouth, and how your tongue is heavy, hanging on the bottom of your mouth. And notice the tip of your tongue touching the back of the teeth, and the front of the teeth touching the back of the lips. And notice your lips, any sensation. Notice your cheeks and your jaw, and invite your jaw to relax. Invite your eye sockets to relax. Invite your skull to relax. And notice inside your skull, your third eye, your inner vision. Notice any light that's coming in, that's dancing around. Notice what it's doing. Notice the quality of what's happening inside the third eye area. And also notice the breath again, coming in. See if you can notice it going all the way into the lungs. Notice where you notice your breathing in your body. You might notice the rise and fall of the chest. You might notice the rise and fall of the belly. You may notice breathing in through your pores. And notice that when you bring in your breath, it's an invitation for life and to open, to give healing to anywhere in the body that's asking. This life force is coming into the lungs and automatically pumping out to every cell, every particle of every cell, every space between the particles. And there may be places in the body that are asking for more oxygen, more letting go, more opening. And invite oxygen into those places especially. And with your exhale, invite anything that's ready to be released to escape through the exhale. Any degree of release that's ready. You may notice that the air coming in, swimming into the body, moving around in the body and then escaping out. It's all part of this energetic field that we're in. And that your body, your skin is just a membrane in between the inside and the outside that are connected through the breath. You may consider that there are lots of other things in the energetic field that are also breathing in and out of this breath, and that we're connected to them through the breath. You may consider that as we inhale oxygen and it's being used up, used up, used up, there's an automatic chemical reaction or change that happens. The oxygen is used up and turned into carbon dioxide, which is our waste product. It is poisonous to our body. So without thinking about it, we expel it through the exhale. It's automatically released through our breath. And in the air that we're releasing it into, the plant world is breathing it in, because carbon dioxide is life force for plants. So the plants and the trees and the grass, everything's breathing in this carbon dioxide, and it's going to every nook and cranny, every cell, every particle of every cell, every space between particles of that plant body. It's being used and used up and magically chemically changed into the waste product of oxygen and nitrogen, which the plant is exhaling automatically out into the air, that we are now breathing in the oxygen, our life force. So consider this relationship between your breath and the plant's breath and how we feed each other. That symbiotic relationship between human, animals, and plants. Consider that through the breath we are also relating to each other. We're breathing in and out of the same air as the plants and the animals. And so we are breathing in and out each other's breath that's been recycled through the plants and refreshed and cleansed. Consider too that this energetic field is kind of magical. This happens without us seeing it or feeling it or smelling it or tasting it or hearing it. We believe that it's happening, this exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. But we can't see it. And there are other things we can't see and we can't feel and we can't taste and touch and smell. Consider that in this energetic field, there are things from the past, there are particles from the past, and there are particles that are going to be shared into the future, that we're breathing in and out of the past and the present and the future. There are things in this energetic field that we don't understand. That there are qualities that we can breathe. We know that we can breathe in and feel better. We can breathe in qualities that we most want to be feeling and encompassing. We want to be filled with. You could right now intentionally breathe in peace. Breathe in forgiveness. Breathe in clarity. Breathe in wisdom. And breathe it back out. And that whatever you believe is the source that is everything is coming from, in this energetic field that is holding everything, whatever you believe that is, you're breathing in and out of it. You are connected to it. We are all connected to each other with it. As you continue this breathing, you may notice that when you're not thinking about your breathing, it's happening anyhow. That thoughts may come up, and they're part of this energetic field. They're beautiful problem-solving, processing thoughts that our brain gives us as a gift. Welcome them into the breath. Welcome them into the energetic field. That there may be emotions that come up that help us feel love and connected, and pain and suffering and forgiveness and beauty. Welcome the emotions. And there may be body sensations that let you know it's time to move. It's time to readjust. It's time to take the hand off of the hot pot. Welcome body sensations. There may be a little itch or air that makes you want to touch your skin. Enjoy that touch. Enjoy the contact of skin on skin, of air on skin. Enjoy those sensations. Welcome them. And come back to the breath, where everything is being breathed in and out of, being invited into the breath, and the breath invited into these things. And as you continue to breathe and allow your thoughts and allow your feelings and allow your body sensations, if your eyes are closed, consider lifting your eye shades and bringing your inner vision and your outer vision together gently as you refocus. Come back to the screen. Come back to our group while you're breathing, while you're in the energetic field, and while we're all here together. Strengthening the transpersonal self is critical because it creates a grounded, safe container to delve and transform within. And even though that didn't feel grounded at the end, it felt spacey, brought us out, you'll, I think, start to understand how it can, knowing that we are more than our personal story, can be really helpful. So without a strong sense of your larger self, facing the hidden parts can be quite disarming and disorienting and confusing. Strengthening the transpersonal self will help you feel peaceful while facing things like shame. Without this pillar, shame will feel like a bully and continue to hold you back, rendering you numb or overwhelmed. There are more and more scientific studies looking at just how effective mindfulness practices such as moving or sitting meditation are for strengthening the larger version of self. Functional magnetic resonance imaging produce activation maps showing which parts of the brain are involved when a person is introduced to various stimuli. Neurologists have discovered that the brain's default network when at rest is actually quite busy. It has a naturally built-in bias towards seeing things negatively. Because the brain has a hardwired orientation to dissatisfaction and distraction, we tend to focus on the most difficult and worst things. There's an evolutionary basis to this, in that seeing what was not safe in our environment helped us to survive. And mindfulness activities create new brain cells in different areas of the brain that, with frequent meditation practice, allow us to better control or counter reactivity and increase the ability to make sound decisions under duress. Without a mindfulness strengthening practice, the default brain remains in survival mode and is easily kicked into emotional reactivity. And when that happens, our thinking or executive brain is not in control, and inside we feel like a child having a meltdown. Can anybody relate to this?
Yes.
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 Very much.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah. Glad we all can, pretty much all of us, I think, can relate to this. Activities like mindfulness meditation that strengthen the transpersonal self also strengthen our sense of being part of a larger scheme of things, that we belong. In turn, this helps develop trust and connection to others, nature, and source, and develop peace. Without doing this step, people who feel isolated or hopeless or desperate remain so, and may be reclusive, lonely, and destructive toward themselves and or others. Using this step has helped me enormously to step out of my insecure stories and personal pain and into my loving power and peace. I'd like to introduce you to my coaching client, Kevin. Kevin has come to deeply appreciate tuning in and meditation. Mindfulness practice and other coaching tools are helping Kevin focus on achieving his goals of paying off debt, spending quality time with his son, and being a loving, attentive, and respectful man to those around him. Kevin came to coaching with goals that he's achieving, and with a new mindfulness practice, Kevin now expresses that he can honestly say life is good. Does anybody need a moment break? We could just take a 1-minute break if you want to stand up. I want to make sure we get at least a break every half an hour to stand up and stretch your arms up and out, and maybe even try and reach your hands behind you and open up your shoulders and your chest. Let your heart melt forward. Take a breath, and on your exhale, let your shoulders drop down. Come back to your seat. Feel the seat underneath you. Feel that connection. If your feet are on the floor, feel that connection. If you have water or tea and you want to take a sip, this is a good time to do that too. So now we're going to get into the second pillar, disidentification. This could also be called disidentification and identification. Disidentification is about loosening, widening, or separating from places in the psyche that feel stuck or narrow. By disidentifying, you're freed up to then identify with a larger, more whole version of the self, where you'll feel more connected to your personal self and others and nature and the energetic field and source. Today, we're going to focus on expanding your connection with the personal self, using a method or tool that I find extremely effective, working with subpersonalities. Disidentification begins by identifying a part of yourself that's living in the psyche and getting in your way. In psychosynthesis, these parts are called subpersonalities. It helps to identify a subpersonality by asking, who's thinking, feeling, or doing that? You can identify any subpersonality, even the healthy and helpful ones, Though in therapy or coaching, the focus is more often on subpersonalities that keep you from achieving your goals or feeling connected or whole or at peace. For example, let's say that I'm going to say that I'm in a lecture and I'm confused by a point that was just made. I want to ask for clarification, but I'm feeling held back. If I ask myself, who is holding me back? I may meet a subpersonality who believes that asking questions makes you look stupid. Once the subpersonality is identified, you'll want to get to know the sub. Find out what it's like, what qualities it has, its age and gender. Where does it live in your body? Why is it there? What triggered it to come out? Why does it feel like it's needed? What strengths does it feel that it's offering to you? And what does it need from you to feel like you're in control so it doesn't have to be? Then from a much larger version of yourself, you step back, and in doing so, the larger version of you is disidentifying from this smaller part. Then you're able to see where the subpersonality's boundaries or limits are. Subpersonalities are often children, so the sub you've identified and are getting to know is most likely it has limited child's perspective about adult life. It has a limited perspective about adult life. Once you get to know many subpersonalities, you can also see where this sub is in conflict with other subpersonalities and where it limits the larger version of yourself. In doing all this, you'll start to realize that your big self is larger than its smaller parts, like shame. Shame is a subpersonality, most likely a wounded child. The big self is like a loving parent. Through this perspective, you'll begin to understand that shame is only a small part of your whole self. It's like your life is a car. I love this analogy. This is one that Sonia and I both heard during our training. So your life is a car, and this child, shame, has hijacked the car, and it took control of the steering wheel. When the big adult self realizes that shame has hijacked the car, the larger self takes care of the wounded child, buckling shame into the back seat, where it's safe and sound. And there may be others in the back seat too, like self-doubt and fear. The larger self has buckled them into the back seat too. And the larger self has the knowledge to help them get along. Once subs are cared for, they're able to relax and be children and have fun. During this process, you can disidentify from the unhealthy aspects of your parts in order to heal them. You're still aware that parts exist. You just know that you're more than the parts and are able to control them. The parts are in the back seat, and you are in control of the steering wheel driving your life. I find there's a lot of healing and empowering and expanding in disidentification. So I can give you an example of a sub that I've met. Her name is Little Sister. So I have a sister who is 4 years older and a brother who is 5 years older. And when I was a little girl, this little girl wanted her big brother and her big sister to, pay attention to her and to love her and to adore her and to take care of her and to protect her. And they were busy living their own lives. And especially in the teen years, they didn't want this little kid hanging around with them and their friends. And so this little sister, subpersonality, always felt kind of dissed or left behind and abandoned. And so as an adult, at one point, my brother and my sister and I were forced to work together because my dad was needing help and we had to all work together to help him. His health was failing and we had to change the situation. And every time I was with my brother and my sister, there was this part of me that would take over, and I just felt so left out and so sad and so hurt, and it made me kind of whiny and angry. And I finally, sat down and did some sub work and realized that this little girl called Little Sister, who lived inside of me and was acting out, that what she really wanted was for an older sibling, somebody to come and say to her, I love you. Climb up on my lap. I'm going to hold you. I'm paying attention to you. And so when I was with my brother and my sister, and I'd start to feel that feeling of insecurity and being left out and feeling abandoned and being dissed and not enough, I would tune into my little girl, Little Sister, and I became the big sister that she always wanted. And I'd have her crawl up into my lap, and she would feel very calm. And then I could be the adult that I was, dealing with this adult man and adult woman who were my brother and my sister, who were fine people. And we could do what we had to do as adults together and love each other as siblings in the same family with the same dad, without this little girl getting in the way, because now she was taken care of. So there's one of many examples that I could give you about subs that I've met. So most personal growth and development practitioners either don't know the importance of disidentification, they gloss over it, or they skip it completely. That's what I found in my work with professionals. And that may be why many coping strategies like addictive behaviors and professional workshops and retreats give participants a temporary sense of euphoria, but then they fall short of helping them achieve deep, lasting, transformational change. So remember my client Jan that I talked about earlier? When we started working together, Jan had already been seeing a grief counselor. She told me that even with therapy, she felt depressed. But by doing psychosynthesis-based coaching, Jan was able to move from depression toward her goal of feeling peace within a very short time. Another person, Marjorie, muttered a funny quip about after our first session. She said that she wanted her money back from the years of psychotherapy and coaching that she'd done that didn't touch her core issues like this work had just done. It's very, very powerful work. When you learn to identify with and disidentify from your subpersonalities, you'll be better prepared when circumstances trigger a sub to rise up and want to take over. Subpersonalities often think that we're in danger and we need them to take over. They react to situations because of old scripts, and they use immature tools. Young, wounded subpersonalities do not make decisions based on the ideal future you most want to create. When the larger self is in control, you'll be more able to make thoughtful decisions, even when you're in stressful, dangerous, or painful situations. A frightened sub will not make rational decisions. When you identify that a sub's been triggered, you can explore why it appeared and what it needs, and then get back in control. Then it will calm down. Then you're able to be at peace, no matter what's happened around you. Conversely, unsupervised subs will disrupt every aspect of your life and hold you feeling out of control and anxious. What happens then is stress pumps out cortisol into your body, leaving you vulnerable to illness and disease. Subpersonality work is powerful and peace-giving, and it puts you in better control of your choices, health, and perspective. Melissa worked with me for a decade. She shared that during our work, she'd been able to safely explore deep, scary, hurt, and angry parts of herself, and felt empowered by the transformation that occurred. Jan shared, Since I discovered my little girl, I feel like I'm in control and at peace. Kevin shared that during a guided meditation, he told all the wounded children inside his heart that he's in control and they can relax, and they did. So the third of the three pillars is synthesis. Synthesis weaves parts together and alchemizes parts into something new. The smaller parts or subpersonalities are learning to work and live together as an integrated, cohesive family. The conscious larger self is the benevolent parent. As I continue to do this work, more subs make themselves known. My family is growing. There's more of me that I'm aware of. I'm becoming more and more conscious of a larger version of myself. And this larger perspective feels more spacious. I feel more spacious. The larger self synthesizes the smaller parts and so feels more connected and whole. In turn, the larger self realizes it is a smaller part of an even larger fabric. We become more aware of and connected with each other, nature, the energy field that holds all, and the source of it all. Synthesis creates a very rich and expansive perspective. This larger view is the precursor to what in psychosynthesis coaching is known as listening for the call of self. When we tune into and follow the call of self, we're following a higher purpose. This perspective helps you match your goals to your values and helps align and strengthen your willpower, goodwill, and skillful will to follow through on what's most substantial and important to you. An exquisitely effective tool that facilitates synthesis, especially of seemingly opposite thoughts and feelings, is simply called both and. And instead of trying to explain both and, I'm going to invite you to just do it. So first, let's just tune in for a moment. We'll do a simple breathing exercise, taking 3 deep breaths. Inhale through your nose if you can, or your mouth if you can't. And exhale fully out your nose if you can, or your mouth. Notice your chest expanding as you inhale into your lungs. Notice your chest deflating as you exhale. Notice your belly expanding as you inhale. Notice your belly contracting as you exhale. I'm going to stop guiding your breath now, but feel free to continue on your own. And this calmer sense of self, the larger self, is what you'll keep coming back to while we continue with the exercise. So we're going to start a both and exercise now. Think of an issue that you're struggling with that has 2 opposing sides that you've been weighing. For example, one of my clients is struggling with his marriage. He's back and forth with, should I stay or should I leave? Another client had been struggling with attending her dad's funeral. He had been an abusive dad to her, and she didn't want to go, but he was her dad, and the family would be there. So go with whatever issue feels like it's bubbling up for you, even if the bubbles are subtle. What's rising up is asking to be seen and heard, and now's a good time to look at it. It's safe here, and you can keep breathing. If you feel sad or angry about the issue, breathe into your heart space. Come back to your peaceful core and release any thoughts, feelings, or sensations with your exhale that are ready to be released. If a smaller version of yourself tries to take over, breathe into your larger self. Come back to the larger sense of self. The larger self can hold and look at difficult or confusing things with curiosity. So, do you have an issue with 2 opposing sides that you're weighing now? So we're going to start the exercise now. Start with one of the sides and hold it in your hand as if it were tangible. Or if you don't want to hold it in your hand, you can put it in a dish, like on one side of a justice balance. Imagine it in your hand or wherever you put it, and feel or sense the weight of it. Imagine and feel all the implications of it. And let the implications grow and deepen. And keep breathing. So this is one side of the issue. And it's in your hand or dish. Now imagine the other side of the issue sitting in your other hand or the other side of the justice balance or wherever you put it. And feel or sense the weight of this. Let the weight, thoughts, emotions, whatever comes up inside, drop in, expand, enlarge, grow. Imagine and feel more and more of the implications of it. And let it grow and deepen. And keep breathing. So you're holding two different sides of an issue, one in each hand or dish or balance. And bring your hands or dishes or containers full with their story and emotions a little bit closer together. You can do this physically with your hands actually moving closer toward each other, or you can imagine it happening. So bring them a little closer and then stay right there and sit with this for 2 or 3 breaths and notice anything different happening. And as you breathe in and out again, bring them a little closer. And take your time, stay with it, and breathe in and out. And now bring them closer still. They may still feel like they're far apart, or they may feel like they're close. So slowly move your hands or containers closer and closer toward each other. And wherever they are, keep feeling what's happening in your body, listening to the thoughts that you're thinking, allowing the emotions that are coming up. And throughout this exercise, keep breathing in and out. And now bring them very close, almost touching. Breathe into the essence of who you are and release whatever is ready to be released out of your body and into the air around you. And keep feeling these two things in your hands or in the dishes. Now bring your hands or containers side by side, touching. The two things in them are side by side and touching. And notice what might happen, what might be happening. Notice what's happening now. What you may be experiencing is alchemy. By holding two different things together, something new is created. There's a space in between that's different. You're synthesizing two different ideas by using both and creating a more integrated or cohesive self. And when you're ready, we're doing a shortened version of this exercise. So when you're ready, open your eyes if they're not already open and bring your focus back to the group. As this process continues to settle in, remember to consciously come back to your breath for the rest of your life. And while we continue with the slideshow and then beyond. So I hope that using both and was a positive experience for you. My clients really love it. And they love how they feel after using these very simple yet transformational tools. So, for example, Donna shared that this work allowed her the freedom to feel layers of grief without shame or embarrassment. And Jonas, who is a professional facilitator of fascination, said that he walks away from every session with a deeper appreciation for himself and his work. And Jenny said that this work helped her shift from feeling stuck to feeling a sense of calm and ease and clarity in her heart and mind. So very simple techniques can have significant effects on us. When you build from these pillars, you'll begin to understand on a very deep level that you're acceptable and lovable and capable as you are. You'll also feel more deeply connected to yourself and to others and to nature and to the energetic field and to source. This method allows clients to succeed because the process is slow and thorough, even though we rushed through a little today and it was just an introduction. It's careful to include details, such as getting all your subpersonalities on board, while coming back to the larger self, time and time again. These pillars and tools lead to real transformation because they operate at the core level, thoroughly healing deep-set issues such as shame, rather than covering up or ignoring them. And I find that this method works really well, both individually and in small supportive groups. I found that the ideal number of participants to implement this learning in a group is 6. Larger groups than that don't work as well. So I coach small, intimate groups of 6 women online for 12 weeks via a Zoom platform just like this. And if you're interested, you can ask me later about these, what's called psychic reboot camps. So there's been a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time. Remember the door of shame and the key to unlock it? And the 3 pillars: strengthen self, disidentification, and synthesis. So Shabnam, you're probably going to really like this. I'm going to recap a little bit for us. I'm a self-love and confidence coach. I help people transform self-doubt to self-acceptance and self-love using psychological and spiritual tools and a psychosynthesis coaching framework. Today you were introduced to the concept of a psychic door that blocks people from achieving their goals. And I told you that most often the psychic door is shame. And I talked about how shame affects confidence. And that the key to unlock and walk through the door to feel confident is to face and work with shame. I talked about the importance of strengthening a larger sense of self in order to be able to work well with smaller parts like shame. And you were introduced to the concept of the transpersonal self, that which connects the personal self to those things that are larger. We explored your list of what helps you strengthen that connection, and I introduced you to a few more items you might want to add to your list. And I invited you to a free online meditation group that I facilitate twice a week. And I'm really happy, Shabnam, that you're interested in that. I will definitely talk about that a little more. This picture is, I send out a reminder to people who are on my email list for just the meditation group. So every Monday night they get a reminder for the Tuesday group. Well, for you it would be a different time of day, but the night or the morning before you get a reminder. We have 2 groups on Tuesdays and on Fridays, and there's a reminder that comes out twice a week. We talked about how loosening and disidentifying from stuck or narrow definitions of the self opens up a more expanded self-concept. I introduced you to working with subpersonalities, which is a tool that I find extremely helpful in the loosening disidentification process. We began to explore shame as a subpersonality, a wounded child, previously hidden in the psyche, who wants to be seen and heard and understood and taken care of. And we talked about safely buckling shame into the backseat of the car that is your life, along with other parts like self-doubt and fear, whoever shows up. We touched on helping those smaller parts get along better and relax and have fun, and how the larger sense of you is more than its parts. In today's introduction to this work that I do, you can begin to understand that when the parts of ourselves are acknowledged and accepted and cared for by the benevolent parent type self, you, the larger sense of yourself, is being self-accepting and can feel and say, I'm okay just as I am. I also introduced myself as a guide into another kind of expanded awareness. We touched on how the benevolent parent self is a smaller part of an even larger fabric, how you're connected to others and nature and the energetic field that holds all and the source of everything. You experienced how tuning in can connect you to those things larger than the personal self. And you experienced another tool that helps tap into this awareness called both and. This tool offers a broader understanding by combining different, even opposing parts to create a brand new expanded awareness. As a kind of bonus, you were introduced to the concept of listening to the call of self and following a higher purpose, and how this psychosynthesis coaching framework brings clarity and focus and follow through to goals of value. Today I showed you the system that I've personally used to accept love, loving your whole self, so you can feel confident enough to begin to achieve your deepest desires, even with shame and self-doubt and fear living inside. So remember the rating list that we did at the beginning of this webinar? I'm going to ask you to pull that back out now. So cover the answers that you wrote at the beginning of the class by folding the paper or putting another piece of blank paper over it. You're going to rate the statements again. Next to each statement, write the number between 1 and 5 that best describes how you're feeling now. So I've reworded this so that it's how you're feeling now. And the rating score is, it makes more sense to word it this way. So why don't you do all 14 of these now? When you move the folded or extra paper and compare the before and after ratings, notice if any numbers have changed. And if you'd like to, unmute yourself and share. Now's a good time for that.
Almost all of my numbers have changed. Not all, but I think all but 2.
And have they changed for the better?
Yes, yeah, all for the better.
Great. Great. That's significant. Anybody else?
For me also, they're better.
Great.
Yes, mine were better. Mine were better except for 1.
That's great. That's a lot of change.
Yeah, mine too. Mine
That's great.
better.
So that lets me know that just an introduction to this work and doing, very limited amounts of the exercises, was that helpful to you? That's significant to me. You can count on the call to be warm and supportive, and we'll apply the things that you learned today, starting with a short tuning in. And if you'd like, we can spend the bulk of our call exploring a subpersonality that's been holding you back, or maybe more than one. I'll guide you toward creating a relationship with it so you can experience feeling more self-acceptance and a deeper sense of self-love right away. And I just want you to know that, yes, that is Michelle Obama. And no, I haven't had a phone call with her yet, but yes, I would absolutely love to.